It started just like any other week. The air was thick with the smell of fresh flowers and the faint hum of anticipation. I could practically taste the sweetness of the moment, standing there in my tailored suit, feeling like everything was finally falling into place. My wife looked stunning, her hair shimmering like dark silk, her smile brighter than the sun. We were about to get married, and I thought I'd never felt such pure happiness in my life. That's how it was supposed to be, right? Perfect, flawless, until I found something that shattered that illusion. It was a simple text message, left open on her phone when she went to the bathroom. I didn't mean to snoop. I swear I didn't want to invade her privacy. But my eyes caught the words before I could turn away. A whisper of guilt crawled up my spine as I read the message. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Miss you already." That was enough to send my stomach twisting. I looked closer and saw her reply, something about meeting up after the wedding, don't tell anyone. My heart hammered like a drum in my chest. I felt like I had been punched in the gut. In the split second before I could process what I was seeing, my mind spun into chaos. My hands trembled as I kept scrolling, desperate to find more. There was more hidden messages, late-night calls, pictures of her and someone I thought I knew, my best friend Jake. I recognized his face, the way he looked at her in those texts. It was blatant. They lied, manipulated, and stole my happiness right when I thought I had everything I wanted. I felt my face flush with heat and my fists clenched so tightly my nails dug into my palms. I wanted to scream, but instead I sat there, stunned. The world around me blurred, the celebration noise fading into the background. My mind raced for answers, for what I could do. How could this happen? How could Jake be so cruel? I kept rereading that message as if the words alone could make sense of the betrayal. I'd trusted her with everything, my secrets, my dreams, my future. And she'd been lying right to my face. That night I stayed up, staring at the ceiling with my fists clenched. The pain was a dull ache at first, but it grew sharper with every passing hour. I kept replaying her smile, her laughter, the way she looked at me during our vows. It all felt like a lie now. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. All I could think about was how I'd been robbed of my happiness, how easily I'd been fooled. And I knew then that I couldn't just walk away without some kind of reckoning. I didn't tell anyone right away. Who would I trust? My friends, family. I wasn't sure I was ready to face their judgment. All I knew was that I had to see her, speak to her, confront her face to face. I needed to hear her lie again, this time to her face. I was burning with rage, but underneath it all was a strange, gnawing sadness. I loved her. Or maybe I loved the version of her I thought I knew. Now I wasn't sure about anything. As I sat alone in the dark, my fingers trembling over my phone, I made a decision. I would find out exactly how far this betrayal went. I wasn't going to let her or Jake get away with this. Not without consequences. I had no idea what I'd do yet, but I felt the weight of that knowledge settle deep inside me. This wasn't just heartbreak. This was war, and I was about to go all in. I looked out the window at the quiet street below, the distant hum of city life carrying on as if nothing had happened. But inside me, everything was different now. My heart felt heavy, yet strangely clear. I knew what I had to do. I sat there, trembling, trying to think through my next move. The betrayal had cut deeper than I thought possible, and I wasn't going to let it slide. Not without making them feel the cold sting of what they'd done. I took a deep breath, feeling the bitter taste of betrayal on my tongue. This was just the beginning. They thought they could lie and steal what was mine. They'd soon find out that I wasn't one to be played with. The wheels in my mind turned faster now, plotting, scheming. I had to plan carefully. Revenge wasn't about just hurting them. It was about making sure they understood they'd crossed a line they couldn't come back from. As I finally put my phone down, I felt a strange calm settle over me. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to beg. I would take what was mine, my dignity, my pride, and I'd turn this nightmare into my revenge. They might have stolen my happiness, but they'd never steal my strength. Not entirely. And I was going to show them just how far I was willing to go. The next morning hit like a punch to the gut. I woke up still replaying that damn message in my head, feeling the weight of betrayal pressing down on my chest. The sunlight seeped through the blinds, but it felt cold, uninviting. I couldn't shake the feeling that my entire world had shifted overnight. The thought of walking into that church pretending everything was fine made me want to scream. Instead, I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to piece together my next move. I knew I had to confront her. There was no way I could keep pretending I didn't see what I saw. The lies, the manipulation, they had to be addressed. But I also knew that going in blind wouldn't work. I needed leverage. I needed proof, something concrete to make her realize I wasn't going to let her get away with this. My mind raced, trying to think of how to catch her again, how to turn her own game against her. I decided to start small. I remembered the last time I saw her phone on the night of the wedding. She had left it on the kitchen counter while we were getting ready. I'd noticed the faint glow of the screen and the faint sound of a notification, but I'd brushed it off as nothing. Now I realized I should check then. Too late for that now. But maybe I could find something else. Something I missed in my initial rush. My plan was to get her phone again when she least expected it. I waited until she was in the shower, the house silent except for the soft hum of water. That's when I grabbed her phone from the nightstand, my heart pounding in my chest. I knew I was risking everything, but I needed answers. I unlocked it, surprised at how easily I got in. She wasn't exactly careful. Her passwords were obvious, her messages left open. I scrolled through her recent texts, her photos, her calls, and there it was, another message, this time from Jake. A picture of 2 coffee cups side by side with a caption, "Can't wait to see you tonight, just a few more hours." The stomach-churning feeling returned. My palms felt slick and my vision blurred at the edges. This was real. She'd been lying to my face the entire time, just like I feared. I needed to be cautious. I didn't want to blow up everything before I had all the facts. But I also knew I couldn't let her keep playing me. I closed her phone, quietly slipped it back where I found it, and sat there, trembling. When she stepped out of the shower, I looked her in the eyes and kept calm, barely able to contain my fury. "We need to talk," I said, voice cold but steady. Her face tightened and her eyes widened just slightly, an almost guilty response, or maybe surprise that I'd caught her so quickly. She hesitated, then sat on the edge of the bed, trying to act innocent, but I saw right through it. "Why did you lie to me?" I asked, voice rising just enough to make her flinch. "Tell me, was I just some fool you played with while you waited for Jake to come back into your life?" She looked away, tears pooling in her eyes, but I didn't buy it. Not for a second. She needed to see I was serious. "I don't know what you're talking about," she whispered, voice trembling, but her trembling hands betrayed her. Her face was pale, eyes darting around as if searching for an escape route. "You think I'm stupid?" I snapped. "I saw the messages, the pictures, your own phone." "How long has this been going on?" "During our engagement, our wedding day." She broke down then, tears streaming down her face. "It's not what you think," she sobbed. "We didn't mean for it to happen, it just did. I was lonely, confused. Jake was there for me and I didn't know how to tell you." I felt my stomach turn. The betrayal wasn't just in what she did, but how she kept lying, how she manipulated my feelings. I clenched my fists so tightly my nails dug into my palms. "You lied. You lied to me every step of the way. And Jake, my best friend, you slept with him right before our wedding." She nodded, sobbing harder now. "I didn't want to hurt you, I swear I didn't. I was just so lost. I needed someone to talk to and it just went too far." I looked away, feeling the rage bubble up. I didn't even know what to say anymore. Part of me wanted to shake her, scream at her, tell her exactly how much she'd destroyed. But instead I sat quietly, my mind already racing ahead. I needed a plan. I needed to make her understand that this wasn't just about breaking her heart. It was about making her pay for the wreckage she'd left behind. I stood up slowly, voice cold and measured. "You better pack your bags, you're leaving, and don't bother trying to come back. I want you out of my life for good." Her eyes widened and she begged, "Please don't do this. I love you, love." I cut her off, voice sharp. "You loved Jake more than you loved me. That's all I see now. I trusted you. I thought I knew you, but I was so wrong." She collapsed onto the bed, crying uncontrollably. I didn't bother to comfort her. I simply turned and left the room, feeling a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. I had the proof, I had the words. Now I had to decide what my next move would be. But one thing was clear, this wasn't over. Not even close. And I had no intention of letting her walk away without consequences. The game was just beginning. I spent the rest of that day trying to keep my composure, though inside I was a mess of conflicting emotions. rage, betrayal, numbness. I kept replaying her tears, her pleas, the way she tried to worm her way out of everything. It only fueled my resolve. If she thought I'd let her walk away after all this, she was dead wrong. She needed to understand the depth of her betrayal, and I was going to make sure she did. That evening, I sat down in front of my laptop, pulling up every bit of ammunition I could find. I wasn't interested in just leaving her. No, I wanted to make her feel the full weight of what she'd done. I started digging into her social media accounts, her emails, her messages. I needed a full picture of her deception, her manipulations. The more I looked, the clearer it became that she'd been lying to me for months, longer than I'd suspected. But I needed something more tangible, something that would hit her hard. That's when I started planning my revenge, not just a breakup, but a lesson she wouldn't forget. I wanted her to realize that betrayal had consequences, big ones. I didn't want her to walk away unscathed, thinking she could manipulate her way out of this. I crafted a plan. It wasn't complicated, but it was precise. I'd make her see that I knew everything, every secret, every lie. I'd leave her with no doubt that her deception was exposed for the world to see. I'd find a way to turn her own lies and manipulations against her. First, I needed to get her phone. I waited until she went asleep, then quietly slipped into the bedroom. I'd already memorized her passcode, or at least I thought I had, but to be honest, I guessed it right on the first try. It was her birthday, something simple, predictable. I scrolled through her messages and photos again, looking for something I could use. That's when I found it, more pictures of Jake, more messages, conversations that confirmed everything I'd suspected. But I wasn't done. I needed more. I hunted through her email account, her cloud storage, anything that could confirm the extent of her lies. And I found it, a folder labeled Memories, filled with pictures, plans, even some texts with Jake. I downloaded everything, making copies just in case. That's when I knew I had enough ammunition to turn her world upside down. The next step was to craft the perfect message, something cold, calculated, that would make her understand she had no escape. I set up a fake email account, one she didn't recognize, and prepared a message. I attached all the evidence, screenshots of their texts, the photos, even some of her emails. I wrote a short, direct message. You lied, manipulated, and stole my happiness. I know everything. This is just the beginning. I thought about sending it anonymously, but then I decided I needed to see her face when she realized I'd exposed her. I wanted her to see the full weight of her betrayal, the shame, the consequence. So I left the email in her inbox, set to deliver early the next morning. I wanted her to wake up to the truth, her secret, her lies all laid bare. That night I sat alone, feeling a strange mixture of satisfaction and dread. I knew I was playing a dangerous game, but I also knew I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not without consequences. She thought she could cheat, manipulate, and walk off like nothing had happened. But I was about to remind her that karma had a way of catching up. When I finally lay down to sleep, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. I'd done what I needed to do. I'd set everything in motion. The only thing left was waiting for her reaction, and I had no idea how she'd respond, whether she'd come crawling back or if she'd fight to save her lies. Regardless, I was ready for whatever came next, because one thing was clear: this game was far from over. Morning came faster than I expected. I woke up around dawn, feeling the adrenaline still pounding in my veins. The silence in the house was deafening, and I could hear her breathing softly in the other room. I had set everything in motion last night, the email, the evidence, and now I was just waiting for her to find out, for her to react. I felt like a predator watching, anticipating the moment she'd realize her entire world was crashing down. I stayed in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, but my mind was racing. I kept replaying her reaction from yesterday, her tears, her pleas, and wondered how she'd handle this new blow. Would she try to deny it, or would she crumble? Either way, I knew the truth was out now. There was no going back. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I hesitated, then slowly reached over and saw an email notification from her account. My heart drummed loudly in my chest. I unlocked my phone and clicked open the message. Her face, pale and teary, flashed across my mind. I'd made sure the evidence I sent would hit her hard, and it did. The email contained a screenshot of her inbox with the subject line, "To Jake," and an attached file, a folder full of every piece of proof I'd gathered. Her message read, "What the hell is this? How did you find out?" I could hear the panic in her voice even through the screen. I smiled bitterly. She finally seen that her lies had been exposed. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I went for a walk outside just to clear my head. The fresh air did little to ease the storm inside me. I was angry, yes, but also strangely relieved. It was over. I'd finally gotten the proof I needed. The question now was, what was she going to do? Would she try to spin her way out, or would she accept her punishment? When I returned, she was waiting in the living room, her face streaked with tears, trembling. She looked at me like I was a stranger. Her voice was shaky when she spoke. What is this? How could you do this?" I crossed my arms, feeling the cold weight of betrayal again. "You knew I'd find out, that's why I did it. I wanted to see how far you'd go, how deep your lies went. Seems like you underestimated me." She looked away, but her hands were clenched into fists. "I didn't mean for it to get this bad. I swear I was just confused, lonely. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you. Love." I cut her off, voice hard. "You love Jake more than you loved me, and you think I'm just going to let this slide." She started crying again, but I felt hollow. No sympathy, not anymore. I'd already seen everything I needed to see. The trust was gone, shattered like glass. I took a step closer. "You lied to me for months. You cheated on me during our engagement, on our wedding day. You manipulated me into thinking I had everything while you were planning this behind my back." Her voice broke. "Please don't do this. I'll make it right, I swear. Just give me a chance." But I had no more patience. I'd already decided what needed to happen. "You're leaving. Pack your things. You're out of here. Don't come back." She stared at me with wide, tearful eyes. "You're just going to throw everything away after everything?" "Yeah," I said coldly, "because I refuse to be a fool any longer. You and Jake took everything from me. My happiness, my trust. Now I'm taking back what's mine, my dignity, my pride, my life, and that means I'm done." She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably. I watched her for a moment, then turned and headed toward the door. I grabbed her car keys, her purse, and a few essentials I knew she'd demand. I didn't want to drag this out. I just wanted her gone. As I handed her the keys, she looked up at me, desperate. "You're making a mistake." "No," I interrupted. "You made that mistake, you just don't see it yet. But trust me, you'll regret crossing that line. You'll regret betraying me and your own damn vows." She clutched her purse, tears streaming down her face. I didn't care anymore. I was done. I stormed out, leaving her standing there, broken and defeated. My heart was pounding, but I felt a strange sense of clarity. I'd finally taken control of the chaos she'd brought into my life. I locked the door behind me, key in hand. This was the end of the chapter. I knew I'd have to pick up the pieces and heal, but right now, I needed the physical act of cutting ties to remind me I was reclaiming my life. No matter how much it still hurt, I was moving on. As I watched her drive away, I realized one thing: I'd taken back my power, and that's what mattered most. The silence that followed her departure was almost deafening. I stood there on the porch, watching her car fade into the distance, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. My chest was tight, like I'd been holding my breath for years, and now that I finally exhaled, it was almost like I couldn't breathe again. I felt lighter, like a heavy weight had been lifted, but also hollowed out, as if I'd sacrificed a part of myself for this moment of supposed freedom. The house suddenly felt too quiet, too big. I had played out every possible scenario in my mind, but nothing quite prepared me for the emptiness that settled like a fog. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do something, anything, to release this storm inside me. But I kept my composure. I knew I had to. I had already won the battle, but the war, well, that was just beginning. I took a deep breath, trying to anchor myself. I knew I'd be okay. I knew I'd rebuild. That was the plan anyway, but I also knew that the pain would linger for a while. Betrayal always leaves scars, and I was no exception. Still, I promised myself I wouldn't let it define me. Not anymore. I was done being the victim. Now I was the one in control. I turned around and looked at the house one last time. It had been my sanctuary, my safe place, but also the place where I'd been betrayed so badly. I felt a strange sense of closure, mixed with a burning desire to move on. I knew I had to leave everything behind her, the memories, the lies, and start fresh somewhere else, somewhere I could breathe again. Over the next few days, I threw myself into sorting through the mess. I packed her things, things she'd left behind, knowing I'd never want to see them again. I took her keys, her jewelry, her pictures, and put them all in a box. I carried it out to the trash like I was discarding the remnants of a nightmare. Every piece was a reminder of what I'd lost, but also of what I was reclaiming. I also started cleaning the house, removing every trace of her presence. It was painful: buttons, perfumes, little reminders of her in every corner, but I had to do it. I couldn't leave her behind in this space. It was part of my healing process. The act of cleaning, of purging, helped me feel in control again. One afternoon, I sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in fiery reds and oranges. It felt symbolic, the end of something dark and the beginning of something new. I took out my phone and drafted a message I knew I'd have to send. Not to her, but to everyone I'd told about her betrayal. It was time to tell my story, to remind myself that I was still standing. The message read: "For everyone who's ever been betrayed, who's ever felt broken, know this: I survived. I lost a lot, but I'm still here. Love doesn't have to destroy you. Sometimes it's the betrayal that sets you free." As I hit send, I felt a strange sense of peace. I knew I'd be okay. I'd taken a blow, but I was still standing. The pain was raw, but it was also a reminder. I was alive, and I was stronger than I thought. I'd faced the worst, and I'd come out the other side. That night, I put all the evidence aside, photos, messages, everything, and made a conscious decision. I wouldn't dwell on the past. I wouldn't let her define me. Instead, I'd focus on rebuilding, on finding happiness again. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I also knew I deserved better. I had to believe in that. The next day, I signed the paperwork to officially end that chapter of my life. I handed over the keys, sealed the deal, and felt the finality of it all. No more remnants of her here, no more lies, no more pain, just a clean slate, a fresh start. As I walked away from that house, I felt the cool wind on my face, and for the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to believe that I'd be okay, that I'd find happiness again, even if I had to fight for it. Because no matter what, I was still standing, and that was enough to keep going. The takeaway: sometimes, the only way to reclaim your life is to cut loose what's weighing you down, no matter how painful it feels. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog. I woke up each morning with a strange mixture of exhaustion and relief, like I'd finally exhaled after holding my breath for too long. The house was empty, quiet, no more footsteps, no more lies. I dismantled that chapter of my life piece by piece, and truthfully, I felt lighter, even if my chest still ached from the betrayal. I started focusing on myself. Little things: going for walks, eating meals I actually enjoyed, reconnecting with old friends I'd pushed aside during the chaos. It wasn't easy. Some nights the memories crept in: her face, her voice, the way she once made me feel like the luckiest man alive. But I reminded myself that those memories were just that: memories. They didn't define me anymore. One evening, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, the city lights flickering in the distance. The air was crisp, and the distant hum of traffic was oddly soothing. I pulled out my phone and stared at the message I'd sent myself after everything happened. It read: "Love isn't supposed to hurt this much, but I survived, and I will keep surviving." I thought about her, how she'd lied, manipulated, stolen my happiness. I thought about Jake, the best friend I used to trust. They'd both played their parts in this cruel game, and I'd been the pawn, but no more. That chapter was closed. I'd learned what betrayal looked like, and I'd vowed never to let it destroy me again. It took some time, but I eventually realized that revenge wasn't about hurting her anymore. That chapter had served its purpose. Revenge was about reclaiming my dignity, proving I could move on stronger than before. I learned that forgiveness, if even just forgiving myself for trusting the wrong people, was the real victory. Not because I was weak, but because I was smart enough to let go of what no longer served me. I started to rebuild my life with simple truths. I deserved honesty. I deserved respect. And most importantly, I deserved happiness that wasn't tainted by lies. It wasn't about getting back at her or Jake. Those were just the symptoms. The real healing came from within. from understanding that the pain, as raw as it was, would eventually fade if I let it. A few months down the line, I got a new job, a fresh start in a new city. I made new friends, reconnected with old ones, and slowly found joy in small things: sunshine on my face, a good book, a walk in the park. Each day I felt a little more like myself. Not the person I was before, but someone new, stronger, wiser, more cautious, but also hopeful. One day I realized I'd stopped checking her social media, stopped obsessing over her every move. I'd finally let go of the need to control everything. Instead, I focused on my own happiness. The scars she left were still there, but they no longer defined me. I was learning to live with them and to grow despite them. Looking back, I see how far I've come. I see the pain, the anger, the heartbreak, all of it, but I also see resilience. Because the truth is, betrayal can break you if you let it. But it can also teach you how to stand up stronger, more aware of what you deserve. So here's what I want to say to anyone who's in the same boat: you're not alone. It hurts like hell, but it does get better. Trust takes a long time to rebuild, and sometimes you have to walk away from what no longer serves your purpose. Be kind to yourself. Don't rush healing. And whatever you do, don't let the betrayal turn you into someone you're not. Because in the end, surviving isn't just about going on. It's about coming out the other side better, wiser, and ready to find happiness again. And trust me, it's out there. You just have to be willing to let go of the past to find it. I've handed over the keys, closed that chapter, and stepped into a new one. And I know no matter what, I'm finally moving forward.